稍等一下啊，我这个 OBS 突然报错了。别着急，保持住啊。申请 OBS。好了，申老师开始吧。
已经开始。
可以了，林夕。
好，我们开始了。各位天维网的观众朋友们，大家晚上好。您现在正在收看的是新西兰天维网 Kiwi 正在为您直播的天维直播间的系列节目之天维新视野。我是主持人林夕。那么在每周二的新西兰时间的晚上8点钟呢，我们与您的准时相约在屏幕的前面，新视角、新思维，带给您不一样的新西兰。收看我们的节目呢，有很多种方式，您可以登录新西兰天维网的官方网站，还有呢天维网的手机端、微信公众号，包括直播还有 YouTube 等各大平台都可以收看到我们的节目。如果您错过了我们的直播呢，没有关系，您还可以通过登录这些平台来收看我们的回放。好，那今天我们的节目呢，邀请到了一位挺特别的嘉宾，他呢是一位土生土长的新西兰人，也就是我们说的 Kiwi 哈。那我邀请他的初衷呢，是因为在我听到了他的故事以后，非常的感动，同时也觉得非常的有代表性。在他的身上呢，我可以看到新西兰人乐观向上的一种精神。同时，我也希望通过我们的本期的分享，能够让大家去了解一位普通的 Kiwi 眼中的世界，他的所思所想，和我们华人呢在一些问题上的观念上的这个共性与差异。好，那我们就长话短说，我们先来跟我们今天的嘉宾Dylan 打一声招呼。Hi
Dylan。Hi， 你好。
你好。How are you?
I'm well. I literally only just finished doing some work, and yeah, looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, I just introduced you to our audience because our show is now live. You are a true Kiwi, aren't you?
Yes. So I'm. Hello to your audience. I hope I speak slowly enough for some of you. But yes, I'm born in New Zealand, but like a lot of Kiwis, I'm mixed race.
Yes, I was telling the audience because I found your story very interesting and very inspiring, in fact. So I'd like to let our audience know more through your story. We actually learn more about Kiwi and Kiwis thinking and Kiwis life. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
And you were born in Auckland, were you?
Yes. So I was born in Middlemore Hospital. To my father, Ken Wilson and Linda Wilson. So they actually had my brother when they were about 19, so a little bit young. And then they waited 8 years and had me. And then about a year and a half later, so a lot of Kiwis want girls. So actually, my parents...
Because a lot of for Chinese boys, I wouldn't say boys better, but people opt for boys. So in your culture, it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, so I think it's not really the opposite, I suppose. It's just men generally want to have daughters, and then my mother said she wanted a son. So it's interesting. A year and a half later, they had my sister, so they were happy. They had 2 boys and 1 girl. Yeah.
I remember you told me that your mother's side and your father's side were both from different background, like.
Yeah. So my mother's side, so she's English and Māori. So even though I'm pretty fair-skinned, my grandfather was quite dark, and my great-grandmother was quite Māori. She had the sort of the traditional flat nose and darker skin. Actually, my grandfather was part of the Hull family, which owned most of Karaka, which was quite a well-off farming area a long time ago, and now home to very large mansions and so forth out there. My dad's side is Scottish and Polish, so I'm very mixed race. Yeah.
Is it quite typical in the Kiwi family?
Yeah, it is. So New Zealand's a little bit different to some other countries. So, if you go to Russia or you go to Poland or England or Scotland, there is some intermarriages. But in New Zealand, there were we're all immigrants into New Zealand, right? Even the Māoris came here. They were the first. So they migrated here, and a lot of other people from other countries wanted to come to New Zealand for a new start. So they wanted to start a new life, or they got promised, amazing farming and all that sort of stuff. So you had a lot of people coming from different ethnic backgrounds. And then, of course, the population is small. People intermarry. And we've got a short history in New Zealand. We're not a very old country. China has huge history. New Zealand is like a little baby compared to that.
But New Zealand is an immigrant country. Like the time that when your parents and your ancestors, grandparents came, that most Westerners, but nowadays you see more Asians coming to this country.
Yeah, we do, and that's kind of why I wanted to get on the show and maybe talk, because I know the Chinese community in New Zealand is very big now, and in some ways, you don't really need to understand Kiwis that well, because there's a whole Chinese community. But I think personally, because a lot of my staff are all Chinese, I work with Chinese. The director of the company I work for now is one of my best friends and Chinese as well. So I think there's a lot to be learned from each other. And we're all living in the same country. I think it would be a shame if we didn't make an effort to understand and better ourselves and better each other.
Yes, like today I saw someone gave you mooncake.
Yes. So these mooncakes. So yeah, it's great. And on Christmas celebrations and stuff, I try to give people presents. I give all the girls chocolates on Valentine's Day in the office. Not flowers, because I don't want to make that.
We have festivals like Mooncake Festival, and we eat mooncakes. I was curious for your Christmas, because Christmas is one of the major festival in your culture. What do you normally eat?
Yeah, so Kiwi food is pretty simple, sort of food. Modern Western food is different now, but sort of traditionally we would have like salads, and for the main we'll have turkey, so roast turkey, or ham, so glazed ham. So you put all the little fruits in it and slice it up, and it looks quite pretty. We have for desserts pavlova. I don't know if maybe you can explain what pavlova is, but it's like egg whites with sugar, really unhealthy, very fluffy cake with a crisp outside. Then we normally put cream on it and fruit. I'm not sure if Chinese have tried pavlova before, but it's quite soft and gooey and fluffy inside, and very crisp on the outside. I quite like it, but it will make you fat.
Pavlova 就是一种当地的一种甜点啊，我们通常那个 Kiwi 在圣诞节的期间会吃这种甜点，所以跟大家解释一下。刚才 Dylan 一直在说这个甜点 ，but I heard there's a debate that pavlova was it in New Zealand?
Yeah. So the Australians try to steal everything from New Zealand. No, definitely a New Zealand thing. But Australians always try to take Kiwi inventions. We always have to remember that the migrants to Australia were mostly criminals.
Yes, I've heard that.
It is a fact.
But is it true that Kiwis and Australians always joke about each other, but in fact you are brothers?
Yeah, so we it's like when you have a brother and one brother we fight. We're allowed to fight and say mean things about each other, but if someone tries to harm Australia or New Zealand, then we're very, very, very close normally. Yeah. So exactly like brothers. Yeah.
So Dylan, we've talked about the fun stuff. Now the following, I think what we're talking about probably will give a little bit weight. I know you are a cancer survivor.
Yeah. So
how do you find about your illness?
Yeah. So actually, I think we, particularly when we're young, and I think even when you're in your 30s and 40s, you're still pretty young. We take our health for granted. What I mean by that is we don't really think about it. We think we'll be fine forever. But actually, what I learned is that even people in their prime who are fit, don't smoke, don't abuse their body or anything like that, can still be sick. So when things happen in your head, it's hard to know what's happening. If you break an arm, you can tell. If you sprain something, you can tell because this is working properly. If you ever have a problem in your head, sometimes it's difficult for you to know there's a problem because this is what's telling you what to do. So, but I did have symptoms, but I thought, because I've always worked very hard, so I thought I was just stressed, but I had a lot of nosebleeds, blurry vision, and I would have migraines all the time. Now, please, for your listeners and watchers, don't be too alarmed if you get migraines and so forth. It doesn't necessarily mean you have a large brain tumor, but I also started getting dizzy. Falling, not really falling, but feeling lightheaded, like someone was stopping the blood supply to my brain. But again, I thought maybe I had high blood pressure, but I'm young, so it didn't really matter. This was all in my very early 30s. When I was 33, I was living in a country called Papua New Guinea. So I was head of small to medium enterprise for a very large telecommunications company there. Papua New Guinea is a very interesting place. The people are lovely, but also there's a huge amount of poverty there. So it can be quite dangerous for expats. We get paid a lot of money to go over there, but we're targeted. So I had a driver and a security guard, like we all did. So he would carry around a big shotgun, and if someone tried to rob me, he would shoot them or cut off their hands or something horrible like that.
Sorry, I will just explain what you have said briefly to our audience in case they don't get the English part. 刚才 Dylan 给我们介绍啊，就是他实际上 Dylan 呢是一位这个抗癌症患者啊。他是怎么发现他得了癌症呢？是在他这个30多岁的时候，当时他正在这个巴布亚新几内亚，在一家中型到大型的一家这个通讯传媒公司，做这个高层的管理工作。那这个生活和工作也是非常的优越哈。但是呢，他就是突然发现他这个身体上有各种一些的这个不好的这个症状，所以他最后知道这个自己实际上是得了这个脑瘤。那我们就是简单的给大家介绍一下他这个背景。Yeah, so when you found out that you were sick?
Yeah. So I started falling over. So I started falling over. And that's not normal. A 33-year-old man shouldn't be fainting at work and at home. So again, I thought it was just because I was in a stressful job, and like I said, the country's stressful as well in some ways because you have to be very conscious about your security. But one of the very senior managers there said, "Look, no, that seems not very good. Why don't you go to the clinic?" So all the expats have an American clinic there with good doctors because the local hospitals are not so good. And the lady said, "Look, maybe it sounds a bit strange, your symptoms. It doesn't." They thought maybe I could have high blood pressure, but they tested my blood pressure, and I was very, very fit and healthy. Unlike now, I need to get fitter. But she said maybe I should get a CT scan, a CAT scan, which is like an X-ray of the brain. So I got that at 5 p.m. and then I got a phone call at 11 p.m. telling me that I had to go to the clinic immediately. And I told them, "No, I'm tired. I'll go in the morning." And they said, "No, get your driver to drive you. Don't drive yourself. You have to come to the clinic now." And it made me a bit scared. So I drove to the clinic, and I had a brain tumor about the size of my fist, and that side. And I don't know if you can see in the light, but I've got a dent in my skull. It's a bit hard to see, and a big skull there. But they wanted to fly me out that night, but we couldn't arrange a private jet. So they practically told me I would die at any moment. But, you know, when someone tells you that, you're kind of in a little bit of shock. You don't really process it that well. It's overwhelming. We managed to hire a private jet for the next morning, and I flew to Brisbane Hospital for treatment for 2 weeks. And then
eventually you came back to New Zealand and you had your surgery here.
Yeah, that's right. And but unfortunately for my mum at the time, my grandfather, who I just spoke about before, he just passed away. So my mother was in the Gold Coast. She couldn't come to me and see me before the surgery. The surgery was done by the head of neurosurgery for Auckland Hospital, Dr. Arnold Bock. So, you know, doctors always, like all of us, right? We always want to work on the interesting cases and difficult things. So So he wanted to do my surgery, which I'm grateful for because he did a very good job. Yeah, but that was kind of only the start of some tragic events that happened through my family.
Because I actually don't want to bring it up, but I know that you have lost your brother.
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, my brother, he always used to introduce himself as the taller, more handsome brother. We always used to tease each other. But he passed away a few weeks ago with lung cancer from his from breathing in asbestos from when he was working in that environment when he was young. He was only 45 when he passed away, so you know, only just middle-aged.
Yeah.
He had one son and a wife, so he's left them. And then actually,
I hope that something happened to your mom.
Yeah. So then Mum found out she had cancer as well. So she was exposed to some radiation when she was younger, and she had thyroid cancer. And it's come back, but unfortunately all through her body, including numerous brain tumors. And unlike my brain tumor was, it grew from the skull. So it just pushed my brain. Her ones are growing inside the brain and very difficult to operate on. So my mother's just turned 65. Oh no, turning 65. Sorry, I should know my mum's birthday. It's terrible. A few days after my birthday, so she's on the late September, just 3 days after me.
You appear to be a very positive and bright and outgoing. I could feel your energy as your friend. But hearing all these tragedies, people may think, "Oh, what has happened to this guy?" So, do you find life is hard?
You know, look, I think we wake up in the morning, and our circumstance or what we have in the morning is the same. We can choose to try to lift ourselves up and be positive, or I can be sad or angry at people or angry at other people. Why do they have no cancer in their family? I can blame people, but the only thing I have control of is my now. So I choose in the now to try to do my best to push forward, and that's what my dad always and mum always taught me, that we can't change what's happened. I'm not saying I don't get sad. Of course, I get sad, and sometimes I feel like giving up. But my personality set is to not do that. Even though I feel sometimes that the world is ending, I know it's not. And if I push through, I can make my day better, and in turn, my week better, and month better, and year better. Because it's not all sadness. But unfortunately, my family's been struck with lots of unfortunate things. But also, in some ways, we've been very lucky. It brings our family closer together in many ways. And it teaches us to be tough, and that's translated into both my brother and I doing very well in business, and things like that. But I think that's sort of teaching from my family, because even my father is.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so my father had a motorcycle accident, and is paralyzed now as well. And he tells me that he knows men and women that can't move anything from their neck down, and they're still positive. So if they can be positive, then I feel we have no right to complain too much, and we should get along and push forward and do the best we can.
Yes, I think through you, I could see Kiwi, because I heard, I know a lot of Kiwis, they have difficulties and they have tragedies similar to your situation, but they always manage to keep a good spirit. So is this something that you have learned from?
Yeah, look, I think the old Kiwi way, because we were all immigrants here, it was all very tough. I think it's changing now. People are becoming softer and complaining more and not pushing forward. But in my generation, we all got taught to push forward, and the Kiwi thing of don't complain about things and just move forward, kind of, it does help, because if you sit down and think too much and complain, nothing's going to get better. But I think that's changing. I think that's changing with the modern, everything's becoming easier. People become wealthier. It changes things.
I know you have a great family support, and your family means a lot to you. Same as the Chinese, because Chinese value family very much. You work in a well-known construction company, and you probably know the housing market really well. And one of the things that the Chinese like to do is to buy houses. But normally you will see for their young people's first home, their parents might be supporting them with some deposit. I was very curious, what is in your culture? Like, do parents support their children to buy their first home?
So some will, but often how it works with Kiwi families, and it is starting to change now, because when I first bought my house in my late teens, you could probably get a house for about $180,000. Right? The prices have gone through the roof. But in those times, what we do, and even now, we have to save our own deposit. So generally, our parents either don't or aren't in a financial position to be able to help, or don't want to borrow on their own home to give you money. So generally, we have to save our own deposit. That's certainly what I had to do. And then when we're 17, often we leave home. We go on our overseas adventure. We consider ourselves adults at 17 to 19, and our parents consider us adults as well. Definitely when we turn 21, and they stop. They stop sort of supporting us and doing all that. So it's very, very different. But what happens is when they pass away, then everything that they've accumulated gets passed on to the children. So that's why you'll see Western men and women in their 50s, let's say, that can afford really nice homes and so forth. They've built up their own wealth, but then they get the wealth of their parents. So their wealth increases dramatically in those years. But I feel in many ways the Chinese way is very good, and potentially better in some ways. From my perspective, though, that Western people, independence is kind of educated to us, so it's very difficult for us to live as adults with our parents. Not that we don't want to, it's just that we're considered the masters of our own family unit then. So our parents, I suppose, maybe lose position. Maybe that's not the right word, but we have to concentrate on our own family group, and they're a support unit for us.
You don't love your parents or you don't support with each other. It's just a different way of setting up family, really. Like you both have your
So you know what I like to think. Yes, there's very much cultural differences between Chinese and Kiwi and any other race, but I think our core emotions are pretty similar, right? So yes, I love my parents, and if they told me to do something, then I normally feel compelled to do it. But if I feel that they're telling me to do something that's against my own beliefs, then generally I will say no and tell them why, and they normally respect. They might not be happy with it, but they'll normally respect that choice. So we still love our parents, but it's a different. We start to treat each other as equals rather than a big.
Yeah. So I think despite of the cultural differences between the Kiwis and the Chinese, we do share some important values. For example, family, love, kids, but we have a different way of managing it.
Yeah, we have a different way of managing it and expressing it. And I don't think there's no right or wrong way. I see a lot of benefit in the Chinese way. And I think a lot of Kiwis can learn from that as well. And I certainly have. I certainly make sure I spend more time with my parents now, because a lot of my Chinese staff always talk about how important that is, because sometimes it's too late. So I think both cultures have so much to learn from each other.
Indeed. Hey, Dylan, it's so lovely talking to you, but regretfully, we are coming to the end of our show. We've only got half an hour, but I just would like to say thank you so much for your kindness, really, to come to the show and to share with us your wonderful story. I feel very touched, and I hope that our audience can get what we are trying to convey.
I hope so.
And hope to see you again. 所以观众朋友们，我们刚才很遗憾，我们的节目就到了尾声了。那今天我们的节目呢，大部分的这个对话呢是用英语来播出的哈。但是我相信呢，很多观众朋友们呢，也通过我们的节目来了解了我们这位 Kiwi 的友人 Dylan，他精彩的这个故事，我们也很感激 Dylan 能够有这个勇气哈，跟这个善良来到我们的节目中给我们分享他的这个生活中的经历。其实我们这期节目呢，也是一个抛砖引玉的一个想法哈，希望通过我们小小的这个努力呢，能够拉近我们华人与新西兰 Kiwi 之间的距离，然后增加我们两种文化之间的相互理解。好，那再一次感谢我们观众朋友们的支持和收看，也感谢我们的导播，我们下期的同一时间再见。